The train screeched to a stop in a cloud of dust and steam, its iron wheels grinding against the rails. As the sun burned low over the Wyoming plains, a figure stepped down from the last carriage, a woman in a faded blue dress, her gloved hands clutching a worn brown suitcase and a folded letter that had guided her across 1,000 miles. Her name was Eleanor Brooks, 35 years old, and until a few months ago, she had been a seamstress in a small Kansas town. But when the town's mill shut down and her father passed away, she had answered an advertisement. A mail-order bride wanted, notice pinned outside a general store. The ad was from a rancher named Caleb Wyatt, who lived out in the wide country near Dry Creek. He was said to be a man of good repute, a hard-working soul, and someone who wanted a wife not for glamour but for companionship and decency. Eleanor had written to him with trembling hands, confessing her age but promising her heart. The reply came back swift and kind, "On come if you will. I seek not youth but loyalty." Those words had felt like a lifeline to a woman who had lost everything. But now, standing on the platform, the letter was little comfort. A group of men in dusty hats and boots leaned against the wooden beams of the station, their eyes following her with quiet curiosity. The air smelled of horses, tobacco, and the faint scent of pine from the mountains beyond. Eleanor's eyes searched for Caleb, the man who had promised her a home. But before she could find him, a tall man in a black coat and narrow eyes stepped forward. "You Eleanor Brooks?" he asked sharply. She nodded, clutching her letter. "I'm Mr. Dalton," he said curtly. "I'm foreman at the Wyatt Ranch, Mr. Wyatt." He changed his mind, said you weren't what he expected. The words hit like a blow. "Not what he expected?" she whispered. Dalton's mouth tightened. "You're older than he thought, ma'am." He said he wanted a woman to start a family. "The train goes back east tomorrow. You can stay at the inn tonight. Tickets already paid." For a moment, Eleanor couldn't breathe. The men behind him looked away awkwardly, shuffling their boots in the dust. Her heart twisted as if someone had wrung it dry. She had spent her last coins on the journey, sold her sewing machine to afford a new dress, and now she was being sent back like an unwanted parcel. She turned slightly, staring at the horizon where the sun dipped behind golden hills, and for the first time in years, she wanted to cry. But before a tear could fall, another voice broke the silence. "Hold on, Dalton." The crowd parted slightly, and a man emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a tan leather vest and a sun-browned hat that shaded his piercing eyes. His walk was slow, deliberate, his face marked by years of wind and solitude. This was Caleb Wyatt, the man from the letters. Eleanor felt her breath catch as he stopped in front of her, his gaze lingering on her face longer than politeness required. "I thought you weren't coming till tomorrow," Dalton muttered. But Caleb ignored him. "This her?" he asked quietly. Dalton nodded. "She's the one." Caleb's eyes softened. "Then you've got it wrong. She's exactly who I expected." Eleanor blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. "Mr. Wyatt," she began hesitantly, "your letter said—" He raised a hand gently. "I know what I wrote, but I didn't say I was the one who sent you back. My brother put that ad out. He thought a young woman might cheer up this lonely old ranch. When he passed, the letters kept coming, and I answered yours 'cause I liked your honesty." He took a slow breath. "Maybe you ain't 20 anymore. Neither am I, but maybe that's what makes sense." The foreman looked uneasy. "You sure about this, boss? Ain't right to take in someone like—" Caleb shot him a look that shut him up cold. "She came all this way on a promise," he said firmly. "And on my land, a promise still means something." Eleanor's throat tightened, emotion flooding her voice. "You don't have to, I know," he interrupted softly. "But I want to." He took her suitcase gently, his fingers brushing hers. The warmth of his hand steadied her trembling heart. Around them, the station fell quiet, the onlookers pretending not to stare. The whistle of the departing train echoed down the tracks, carrying away the life she'd left behind. They walked toward his wagon, the silence between them filled with the hum of crickets and the fading gold of sunset. "I'm sorry," he said after a while. "I should have written sooner. Didn't think anyone would answer that ad. Been years since I thought about marrying. Lost my first wife to fever. Buried her under that big oak near the river. Thought that was the end of me." Eleanor glanced at him, his jawline set, eyes distant. "And yet you wrote," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Guess I got tired of talking to the horses. The wagon jolted as they set off toward the ranch. The road wound through tall grass and shadowed hills, the sky turning shades of rose and violet. Eleanor watched the horizon, her heart still tangled in doubt. "You don't even know me," she said quietly. Caleb's hand stayed steady on the reins. "I know enough. You're a woman who didn't give up, even when life tried to make you." He glanced at her with a kind of gentle certainty. "That's all I need to know for now." By the time they reached the ranch, night had fallen. The house stood alone under a wide sky filled with stars. Simple, sturdy, built by hands that knew hard work. Caleb helped her down and led her inside. The warmth of a hearth greeted her, the scent of pine wood smoke curling in the air. "Ain't much," he said, "but it's honest." She smiled faintly. "It's more than I had yesterday." As she laid her things down, she caught sight of a framed picture on the mantel, a younger
Caleb with a woman beside him.
Her smile soft and knowing. She turned away politely, not wanting to pry. Caleb noticed, his voice low. "She'd have liked you. Said I needed someone stubborn enough to make me talk again." Eleanor met his gaze, and for the first time that day she smiled, a small, real smile that reached her eyes. Outside, the wind whispered through the grass, and somewhere in the distance a coyote howled. Life had a strange way of breaking hearts only to mend them in unexpected places. Eleanor realized she wasn't sent back by fate. She had simply been sent to the wrong man, and perhaps finally to the right one. The dawn light spilled gently over the dry creek valley, brushing the ranch house with hues of gold and honey. Eleanor woke to the sound of roosters and the faint clatter of pails. The world here felt vast and alive, horses grazing beyond the corral, mountains guarding the horizon, and the whisper of wind through the cottonwoods. Caleb was already outside, hat tipped low, mending a fence with deliberate strength. When he turned, his faint smile met hers like the rising sun. "Mornin', Miss Brooks," he said. "Hope the bed was decent enough." She smiled back, shy but steady. "It was the best night's sleep I've had in years." They shared breakfast in the small kitchen, sunlight filtering through lace curtains. "This place can be lonesome," he said, stirring his coffee. "Been just me and the hands for a long while. Ain't used to company." Eleanor folded her hands around the mug. "Then maybe it's time you were." That gentle sentence lingered, in the air like a promise. As the days unfolded, Eleanor learned the rhythm of the ranch. She fed chickens, cooked for the ranch hands, mended clothes, and walked the fields with Caleb at sunset. She began to see beyond the hard shell he wore, the man beneath who carried sorrow like an old wound, who smiled rarely but with sincerity when he did. She noticed how he spoke to the horses as if they were old friends, how he fixed every broken thing without complaint. It made her heart ache and bloom at once. One quiet evening, as rain pattered softly outside, she sat by the fire sewing a tear in Caleb's shirt. He watched her with quiet warmth. "You're different from what I expected," he said. "Most women that answered them ads wanted dresses and easy living. You came with nothing but courage." She smiled faintly. "And maybe a little foolish hope." "Ain't foolish," he said, "if it brought you here." But their peace didn't last long. One morning, Dalton, the foreman, arrived with 2 men from town and handed Eleanor a letter. It was from the agency, official notice declaring her match invalid and ordering her return east. "Pack your things, ma'am," Dalton said. "Wagon leaves at first light." Eleanor's stomach turned cold. She looked to Caleb, but he was already rising from his chair. "She's not going anywhere," he said evenly. "She belongs here." Dalton scowled. "You mean to marry her, then?" Caleb looked at Eleanor for a long moment, the world holding its breath between them. Then he said, "Yes, I do." Silence fell. Eleanor's heart trembled, not from fear but from something deeper. When Dalton finally rode off, muttering under his breath, Caleb turned to her. "Didn't mean to decide for you," he said quietly. "Just couldn't stand the thought of you leaving." She stepped closer, voice soft. "You don't have to marry me out of kindness." His gaze locked with hers. "This ain't kindness, Eleanor. It's need. You make this place feel like home again." Tears shimmered in her eyes.
"Then let me stay," she whispered.
Weeks later, beneath a sky painted silver, they stood beside the old oak by the river and exchanged vows. There were no guests, no fancy clothes, just the sound of the wind and the whisper of leaves. Caleb slid a simple gold band on her finger and said, "I once thought love had an age. Turns out it don't." Eleanor smiled through her tears. "Then let this be the start of forever." From that day on, laughter returned to the ranch. The woman once sent back for being too old became its heart and her warmth turning solitude into life. And every evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Caleb would reach for her hand, kiss her cheek and whisper, "Ain't it something how the good Lord knew better than us?" Eleanor would smile, her heart full. She had crossed miles of sorrow to find this, not just a home, but a love that came late yet right on time. If this story touched your heart, if you believe love has no age and second chances are real, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. More powerful Western love stories like this one are coming soon, filled with courage, redemption, and the kind of romance that lasts a lifetime. Hit the bell icon now and let's ride together into the next unforgettable story.